the Hypnorotica podcast. Episode 3, Part 2 of Episode 2. In this episode, we talk a little bit more about the different appeals of hypnosis, and then ramble onward about plot bunnies. Hope you enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, I would actually really like to do that. I used to be really interested in the whole vivification thing myself, and I kind of withdrew from it a bit, mostly because there are more fun things to do for me that I really enjoy. But I mean, I'm also the person who finds the negotiation before a BDSM scene probably more interesting than the actual scene to some degree.
Okay.
I like... And this sounds like maybe even worse in some ways, but I like knowing I can put pressure on someone in a way to make them like really, really think about what they're doing, what they're saying, what they're agreeing to. And that's the primary draw of hypnosis for me. It's not, necessarily the power trip. Like, I have so much power, rawr. It's more the other person's submission. It's not how strong I am, it's how weak they are.
I see.
Which, I mean, that's not really fair, but that's my fantasy of it. Because, I mean, submitting to someone, that's trust, and that's totally cool, and that's not a sign of weakness at all.
Right, yeah.
It's a sign of, like, a really cool bond.
Yeah, the bond is always fantastic, and I've always found that trancing someone is just one of the most intimate activities that I've been involved in.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's trancing is especially if your like partner really, really buys into hypnosis. It can be very dangerous, and that's kind of why it's fun in a lot of ways. You feel like you might accidentally be playing with fire, and that is in its own way really intoxicating.
Yeah, a little bit of danger, and those sorts of power exchanges are always very exciting sorts of things.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I guess we do have sort of this classification that we can think about, and everyone's going to fall a little bit into it on one side or the other. I think that it can be problematic to be completely obsessed with one side or the other to the exclusion of the other side.
Yeah.
And I've run into people who I would say fit on both of those extremes, where it's someone who's like, their MC scene is, I hit you with the hypno-ray, now we're going to do this and this and that.
Now we're going to have the sex.
Well, I was about to say, and then I've seen the other situation where it's like, there's this nice little intimate seduction trance thing, and then it's like, okay, pull it down your pants now, it's time for the sex.
Yeah, I mean, I've been guilty of that second example a little bit, where the entire thing was seduction, and maybe the payoff wasn't really good enough. And that's sort of the thing, it appeals to different people. Some people will really, really, really love that seduction aspect, but it's not complete on its own. It really isn't. There's still that kind of like empty feeling when it's over, unless it's followed up with something that can be that proper crescendo again.
Right. And I think that fits in well to how I've said in the past that a hypno fetish is sort of a narrative fetish. You need some amount of passage of time for it to have a payoff. There's...
I mean, I'm going to argue that time stop stories used to be super common on MC stories.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know if there has to be a necessary passage of time.
Okay, yeah, well, that's not exactly what I'm saying.
I know, I'm being a jerk.
It's just sort of, yeah. But it's like... And I feel like, maybe someone who's a legit member of a foot fetish would be like, no, that's not how it is at all. But I think to myself, if you have a very strong foot fetish, you see a picture of a woman's feet in a prominent position, and that's something. But if I see a picture of a hypnosis scene or something, my mind is immediately trying to create a story and a narrative that goes along with this. It's, just seeing a watch being waved or something like that is not enough to trigger the attraction on its own.
I mean, I'm going to argue against you for a second here. Have you seen Pornhub's latest, like, information breakdown thing they did?
No, I have not.
Okay, I'm going to have to link this to you, because it's really interesting to read.
Go ahead.
But the most, like, commonly used tags, like the things that people are looking for the most, and the categories they're looking for the most, are things that depend entirely on context. Things like teen, which is still gross to me. No matter what anyone says, it's always going to be gross to me. Stepmom, stepsister, daddy. These are all generally really, really popular, especially with their target demographics. Like, a ton of women looked up daddy play and stuff. And it's a thing. Like, I think context matters to everyone to some degree.
That's true. And I think the one commonality, I guess, and I'm dipping into territory that I don't have direct experience for, is a lot of those things, I think, always have a little bit of the power dynamic thrown into them from either the creation of the fetish or as part of it itself. You know, stepmom, daddy, and things like that have a lot of implicit power dynamics as part of them.
Yeah, they really do. There's also a reason, like, the whole the babysitter thing is still super common. The affair with the babysitter is one of the most commonly used tropes in porn and in fiction, just fucking forever, and I don't know why. I think it's more just generally a younger woman inside the house watching her kid. It's a very intimate job in a certain way, and so that makes it that builds a narrative on its own. I think the thing that makes hypnosis a little more unique is that hypnosis has a rather empty narrative on its own, and it's really, really, really easy to fill the gaps with a variety of things. Like that swinging watch. I mean, that can be a powerful image. I think that can actually be like a really powerful image. That can inspire me to write sometimes. Because you can use that, like, it could be a stage show. That's a fun one to always write. You know, a stage show gone terribly, terribly right or wrong, depending on your point of view. It could be, you know, a hypnotherapist, which again can go terribly, terribly right or wrong, depending on point of view.
Yeah, but yeah, I guess so. You know, but in all these instances, we're inserting a context into the image. We're filling in those gaps.
I think in general that's really common across porn. Even I don't know how many adult shops you've been in.
I'm sure not as many as you.
I mean, look, I'm innocent. Yeah, if you go into adult shops and stuff, though, nothing's really just like two people fucking the movie. There's usually context put into everything, and I think that's because there's a natural.
Sometimes you just have to show those lemon-stealing whores who's boss.
Right, you know, it happens, okay? Don't steal lemons. They'll make your face sour, and that's not the right look, okay? But yeah, if you walk into an adult movie shop, not even necessarily a movie shop, you know what I mean. If you walk into an adult shop, check out the movies, and you'll see they all have some sort of context, even if it's kind of like strange context you wouldn't think of. Like, for porn, black is a context. Yeah. Black people are a narrative, and it's kind of gross when you put it in those terms. It's a really
deep racist narrative, but it's a narrative, yeah.
I mean, porn is super, super, super aggressive on that front. It's why in BDSM porn, and you'll have companies that like have the interview before or after whatever. Oh yeah, I totally want this, blah, 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 blah. And it's really unfortunate because they have those things to make everyone, watching. It's really just for the people watching, by the way, to make the people watching feel better, not to feel like they, just watch someone get abused, because a lot of people are uncomfortable with that. A lot of people like that narrative too, though, so I mean, it's kind of a weird thing. But as soon as you kind of pull the curtain back a little bit and you realize, wait, no, this girl got paid to do this, and she probably needed the money, and then it's like, okay, how consensual is this really?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it gets that kind of weird thing. It's not really good to, like, try and question other people's consent, mind you. That's a road I don't want to go down, because it's not something I can really do. But probably my favorite porn, because I know it's porn, I'll have to look up the name, because I haven't, I haven't watched porn in too long, which is really unfortunate for me. It's all about the erotica. It's way better because then you don't have to worry about questions like these. But my favorite porn is a French lesbian woman who only does her things with like this close group of friends she has, and they just keep starring in a bunch of different roles, basically. And I realize to some people that could get kind of boring. To me, I kind of like it because it lets me in on this whole, oh, these people have been working together on this sort of thing for a really long time.
Right.
Really long time being like 6 or 7 years because of porn industry. That
is a long time. That's like 2,000 films, right?
I think she only does like 2 or 3 a year. They're kind of artsy and a little pretentious, but I really like them.
They're putting a little bit more effort into it. That's good.
They're I really like them. That's all I can really say. I'll have to try and get the name for next time when we're recommending like good porn or something. It's nice to not have to worry about that sort of thing, that little nagging feeling in my head sometimes, and that's why I generally prefer erotica and, you know, drawn porn and stuff instead of acted out porn, because there's some weird politics going on there sometimes.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that as you were speaking, as this is a little tangential, but I have this certain circle of friends, and it would come out that, they had they're familiar with this or that porn actress, and this friend of mine is, I guess you don't watch much porn, huh? And I respond, yeah, I guess not, as opposed to what I was really thinking, which was, yeah, but the stuff that you watch would really bore me, and would just be kind of weird and vanilla, and I'd be like, oh, okay.
Oh man,
yeah.
I know that feeling so much.
I don't want to vanilla shame them. So I don't really get into that, but yeah, a lot of the live action porn stuff just feels very weird and disjointed to me.
I totally agree with you. It's not something that generally appeals to me. Generally is kind of the thing here. I'm very much a tactile person when it comes down to it. I like physical presence and everything, and so it makes porn in general not very fun. And I'm not getting into the details of my masturbation routine because no, maybe later, but no, not right now. But I mostly do read erotica and look up these pictures for more of a recreational thing and more for a weirder sense of sexual pleasure than inherent, oh, I'm totally fucking myself right now kind of pleasure. And the thing I like for more physical intimacy and sensuality is stuff like really nice baths with bath salts, or massages. Massages are the best thing ever made, ever.
Yes, massages are quite wonderful.
There's a few other things, and this is kind of the stuff I write about too, especially now. I really need to release some of my new porn writing, because I think it's been 4 or 5 years since I released something.
Yeah, I've been trying to get myself back into writing the past year, and I'm doing a little bit better as time goes on.
I've written other stuff, which is great and all, but I mean, I'm getting back into doing fucking erotic shit, so I might as well go full into it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But some of my favorite things to describe are things I think most people could generally feel if they wanted to. One of my favorite feelings in the world, because I have this huge thing for stockings, this unbelievably fucking weird and wonderful things for stockings. It's right up there with my hypno fetish. But just the feeling of putting on a really, really nice sheer stocking, whatever, and the band, and just pulling it on, that's a really nice feeling. And it's things like those, that sort of sensuality, that I tend to enjoy much more than results, I suppose, is the clever way of wording this. And that's probably why I'm much more interested in the seduction aspect of hypnosis, too, because it's that process. There's this weird, sensual aspect to it, that tingling in your head, that nice, deep breathing, things like that. Even when I'm hypnotizing others, you get into that, I can't remember what they call it. It's when you're kind of half in a trance yourself when you're hypnotizing someone else.
Is there a term for that?
I don't know. I thought there was.
Okay. I've experienced that before, but I've never heard of a specific phrasing for it.
Well, maybe we'll have to invent something.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's a really nice feeling too, and I guess my result, my climax of that feeling is when they're waking up or whatever, or when you really have them under, and there's just that sudden flow of adrenaline as you start to, fully, reemerge, I guess, your total consciousness instead of just going with the flow yourself. And it's that, like, sudden, like, power trip and adrenaline and that wonderful feeling. I always have to get, like, a fucking piece of dark chocolate afterward to calm myself down. It sadly does not happen when I'm recording, so it's rather unfortunate.
Yeah, there is always, and something that's always made it a little bit harder as I get into the experimenting with MP3 trancing, is that you don't have that same immediate intimacy with someone right there.
Yeah, it's much more of a creative work instead of a sexual work.
Yeah, and so, and in some ways, it's shown a weakness that I've had where I've been very reliant on in-the-moment inspiration when I'm doing a trance, with an active person there, that getting more into the creative literary side of things is good for my hypnosis work in general.
Yeah, being able to see how someone responds and whether something's working is really helpful.
Yeah.
Where you don't normally have that feedback for doing trances and recording them. But the benefit of being able to record them is you can go back and edit weak parts and you can change things around. The problem is because of the nature of it and how you have to have kind of this like really, really stable like tone and volume and everything. It's actually really hard to go back and edit that stuff too.
I found that generally it's really, really hard. You can't help but not notice that two recordings have been put together. Because the tone is always going to be just a little bit different.
Yeah. I've been working on that myself. I've been doing a lot of stuff the last few days because we're in this. We're going to do it.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
Not going to stop until we have a site and everything's like all great and everything. And if you slow me down, I'm gonna hypnotize you into working harder.
Oh, jeez. The gauntlet has been thrown down.
Gauntlet has been thrown.
We've got a site. We just got to start putting the trances onto it.
I know. I have. Since we started this project, talking about it at least, we've been both been through a lot. Like, you've been going back to school and everything, and I've changed address 7 times.
Oof, yeah.
At least, maybe more. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. So life has been throwing a lot of interesting twists and turns our way.
Yeah, it really has, and it's a thing. It's a really big thing to think about.
So, but yeah, I'm happy that we've been making this progress the way we have.
Yes.
We're going to have more of those trances coming out. We're going to start doing some more of those erotica stories. The worst part for me is I just keep getting a lot of random silly ideas that I've got to banish to the back of my head.
Let's talk about those ideas for a second, because I think it's worthwhile, and especially discuss it over a podcast sort of thing.
This is the plot. This is the plot bunny section of our Hypnorotica podcast.
I really want like a cute sound. Do 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 do. The things I'm going to be working on for the site, things I know about I'm working on, and these aren't like soon things. These are things for as I can do them. I'll eventually get stories. That's my low, probably far down the line thing, because I'm currently writing another story for myself, for maybe, a different sort of career type thing that'll probably not happen. But I want to write, non-erotic stuff sometimes too.
Yes.
The other thing I'm doing is I'm going to start work on a hypnosis-based, visual novel sex game. I don't know what to fucking say on that thing.
That's a visual novel sex game. Seems like it describes it perfectly.
An erotic visual novel. The thing that's going to try and separate this from kinetic novels, which you don't have control over or whatever, or even most visual novels, is I'm trying to make it a little more of a game. There's a few various games that kind of do a similar thing. Like, I'm probably going to take a fair bit of inspiration from Trap Quest. I don't like everything about that game, but I like kind of its core mechanics, and I like some of the ideas presented in it. Even if it doesn't really... I feel like it's a much more visual game than it really is. I don't know. That game has a weird appeal, and I can't quite break it down. And I'm going for a very, erotic, written style appeal thing, where, it's going to be just a tiny bit like maybe Myst, where you're trying to discover some answer to a thing, and good luck not getting in trouble. And when you get in trouble, I hope you have fun, because I'm going to make sure at the very start you agree to everything, because that's great.
Yeah, I've thought about game development sort of stuff for a long time, especially with MC related sorts of things. And it is interesting how you can have the mechanic of losing can be a perfectly happy thing for you to do, because that means you get to see some hot scenes go on under the right context. There's a Japanese game called Lightning Warrior Raidi that had a mechanic like that, where the gameplay aspect was a very Dragon Quest traditional RPG fighting, but whenever you lost to the bosses of these various dungeons, you would get to see this long sequence of your character being dominated and controlled and messed with by the boss. And then similarly, once you beat the boss, then you would get to see the opposite of your character, giving them some Japanese arrow punishments.
Yeah. I think the first person I ever really heard kind of talk about the difficulties of making a porn game, and one of the things that really have to be understood is if you make losing interesting, you can't make the game too difficult at the same time.
Right.
He talked about this in a kind of interesting way. I'm not sure if anyone knows who Lion Marvel is. He is a guy who did the games Jungle Girl and Demon Girl like a decade ago. It was a forever ago. Like, this is before I should be looking at porn kind of forever ago.
All right.
But whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was talking about how when he was making these games, he has to think, okay, a lot of people are only going to play this with one hand, so I have to make sure it can be played with one hand. And, I mean, no, that's a totally true thing, when you think about it. But he said, yeah, I have to make sure people can play this with one hand, and I can't make it too terribly difficult because, I want winning to pay off. I want, people to be pushed to win and not only to just lose.
Right.
But I also want to make losing fun because I don't want people to have to struggle to win to get off. And yeah, it's I know it's a weird thing to try and take game advice from, but it's very true.
No, that's very helpful advice.
Yeah.
I myself am been playing around with the program RPG Maker, mostly just as sort of it's a good framework to get started because actually building a game from scratch takes a lot of time. But I've been trying to play around with the code so that you could turn it into an adventure game sort of thing.
You might want to see if Game Maker works a little better than that.
It's possible. It's something else that I'll look into, but I'm sort of deep into it at this point that I at least want to get a prototype level set up to see how it all feels and plays out. But anyway, and so I've got this idea of there's that old RP that I used to play in MTech, which was about an entire college of people who have come to learn how to mind control, and students can prey on each other, which seems like it's a pretty decent setting for a LucasArts style adventure game.
Yeah.
Gotta get the rubber chicken with a pulley in the middle, and somehow that helps you hypnotize your roommate, sort of thing.
Look, okay, she has a thing for clowns.
That's a possibility.
And
the logic on some of those puzzles in the old school games were pretty screwy as well.
She really just wants you to honk her nose, okay? It's your biggest turn on. Don't judge her.
Mm-hmm.
Don't kink shame, you vanilla shamer.
I think there's a lot of potentials out there for... You can add mind control as a theme to a lot of traditional style things. Like I had mentioned to you earlier that it occurred to me that you could make sort of a cookie clicker style game with the theme being, enslaving and mind controlling people. And while that's very far on the axis of the non-consensual evil hypnotist style thing.
Yeah.
That's a good example of taking, what's already an established genre and just sort of, adding a new skin on top of it, which people like the people who make the Candy Crush games have been making billions of dollars doing.
Yeah, Candy Crush is a little more difficult though. It's basically just a match 3 that has predatory tactics to get people who aren't used to games being addicted to.
Exactly. Yeah. No, we could do a whole thing about the mind control of games like Candy Crush, where they
oh man, can we talk about how advertising and like propaganda and stuff is kind of like real life mind control? Because I mean, come on.
Yeah, we can talk all about that sort of stuff.
Look, we're gonna have a lot of boring episodes, okay? And by boring, I mean awesome, and I hope everyone who is listening to this will eventually listen to those. You know, the 10 people who might listen to this at first.
Right.
One day soon, just you wait.
So yeah, I think that's a fun thing. I've always thought that it would be amazing to be a game developer. Of course, I don't have any artistic skills, and my programming skills are extremely rudimentary, but I have drive and inspiration.
I mean, look, it's mostly all you need. I've been learning how to draw, so maybe it will help with your art a bit.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to recruit my actual artist friend to help me if I end up doing the whole visual novel thing and it gets far. And I have a musician I can call in favors for, and I know a programmer.
Really? Okay, you are just stacked.
Look, I know people, okay?
You have connections.
All my friends became successful, and I'm going to try and do, like, a porn thing.
You meet people at these sex shops, is what you're saying.
Yeah, you know, look, you have a good voice, you know how to carry yourself. You say, hey, if you do this for me, I'll whip you a little bit, and look, you'd be surprised.
So yeah, I've been thinking about those. I'm gonna put onto the site, some of the real short stories. I guess the classification for these would be hot flashes that I've made, on the Tumblr site in response to various images. And obviously I can't put those images on the main site because they don't belong to me, but I can put the little stories that were created from them.
Yeah.
And also a project that might go up, which is a novelization of that RP forum thing that I used to do, Imtech. And like I said, I just also get random plot bunnies that I probably just can't afford to spend any time on. Most recently, I've been thinking about silly deconstructions of the harem anime trope. Either specifically thinking about a situation where the hero, for maybe an MC reason or maybe not, is like, yeah, I choose all of you, and if you're unhappy with that, then you should leave. But all of them are like unwilling to completely leave, and all various levels of conflicted about his choice.
I mean, I still need to write this story about a lady who manages to get a reverse harem, basically one sub, like 10 dominatrixes or whatever.
Oh, okay.
Just, I don't know, it'd be fun.
Yeah. And just recently, because I was been listening to a history podcast, and it was talking about some of the old monarchies and how, you know, every single time the firstborn son takes the throne, you're rolling the dice on how good your new ruler would be. So my mind thinks up, well, obviously the solution would be to have lots and lots and lots of heirs and pick the one who's the most competent. And naturally, then you're going to need more than just one wife to make sure you get all these heirs out. Instant justification for a harem.
Like kings needed justification for a harem.
And of course, then the question becomes, what happens when a woman takes the throne?
I mean, like a queen needs justification for a harem.
That's right.
Look, obviously, they'll all fuck her back to back, and the one with the best sperm would win. That's how nature works, okay?
That's right, yeah. I've always enjoyed writing quite a bit, so I'm looking forward to having a lot of that on the site. That's also been sort of my go-to in the past I would do I could do role play sort of stuff. That doesn't really feel appealing to me anymore. Possibly just because once you have done the real thing, then RPing loses a lot of its allure.
Yeah. I think it's also an availability thing too.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
Yeah. I don't know where I was going with that.
Okay.
Just like, I had something really, really cool to say, and it's like, wait, no, I don't. Okay. I kind of still wanted to get into, I kind of, mentioned it a bit earlier, but the appeal of consensual versus non-consensual for me, and I think this is a topic we can kind of cover, and maybe it'll make this podcast fucking forever long, but I don't care.
Go ahead.
I tend to prefer much more consensual activities just because, well,
yeah.
I enjoy people feeling good in general, as I think most other people kind of do when they think about it. Even when you get into, looking at rape fantasies and stuff, you find out it's not really them looking for rape fantasies. They're just looking for, spontaneous rough sex.
Okay.
Because they want it still, they want it. That's the thing. They don't want to kick and scream and bite and be like, oh no, this is the worst, I'm being violated. They want, some spontaneous, aggressive, rough sex. Which, I can't blame them. Spontaneous, rough, aggressive sex is fun. But it's still kind of consensual to some degree. I know there's probably some people who actually want to do the whole extreme of that, because there are 7 billion some odd people on the planet. There's always going to be one, or maybe even a group of.
Yeah.
Balloon fetishists are a thing. I can't comprehend it, but I mean, they like it. They're not hurting anyone. It's totally consensual, and they have fun. So hey, cool, good for them. But yeah, for consensual stuff, I just tend to prefer it mostly because I don't know. I don't like hurting people. That's what it really comes down to. Even fictional things, I still feel a little bad. Like, when it comes to video games, playing the evil character, I can't do it. I feel bad.
I've had that exact same situation. I was specifically Knights of the Old Republic. I played through the game. Good, nice, light-sided Jedi. And my cousin was like, oh, you gotta play the dark side one, too. That's so great. I just couldn't do it.
Yeah, well, Knights of the Old Republic dark side was, like, being a dick, so...
Yeah, I was about to say, that's the one thing that I would have to say. I think this is true for a lot of these sort of, choose-your-path games, is that evil just works out to being a dick.
Isn't that kind of true in real life, though? When anyone look at Hitler and say, that guy was evil, but he wasn't a dick.
Right. And I guess maybe, the games are maybe true to life because they're showing the true banality of evil and not the mastermindish, diabolical style that most people think of.
Yeah.
But I think, it just didn't seem as fun for me at that point when I realized, hey, my character's just being a huge dick.
Yeah, no, it's totally, I agree 100%. Like, I have that exact same issue. I've never seen evil done super well in a video game. The closest I've ever seen was, I guess Tactics Ogre kind of did a weird thing where you could be, like, you could work within an organization that was kind of evil, doing what was necessary to win, at all costs. And that's kind of maybe a little evil. And that's the closest I've ever seen. It was a real life portrayal of, what people do because it's easier.
And I think that you end up leaning more and more to the consensual side the more experience you've had with actual hypnosis and real people. Because that's sort of the confrontation that you have, is a lot of people first get exposed to the subject because
April O'Neil getting hypnotized by, I don't know.
Exactly. A lot of people get first exposed to it because there's some scene in some movie or show where it's, the bad guy is using mind control on a good guy or just on some helpless bystander. And so a lot of people are introduced to it within the non-consensual context.
Yeah.
And that can have sort of an effect on your expectations about where the fetish is going to take you in the future. And especially then, you start reading MC stories and stuff like that. And so you can get onto that fantasy side where the non-consensual stuff is very prominent. And, some of that stuff is great as a fantasy. But you can't take a lot of those concepts into, actual practice. And so you start to experience and appreciate and really prefer in a lot of circumstances, the consensual side of things.
Yeah. I think there is an interesting story to be told, and I really want to write this story, and I hope no one steals it from me, or I'm sure someone's already done it, but of, like, the traditional superhero who's been hypnotized kind of thing,
Right.
And I really want to, like, break that story down and make it into, like, a consensual story of how a superhero and a supervillain are able to, like, half coexist, because they dig their little, like, flings they have, and they use hypnosis as an excuse to, have this weird sort of flinging thing. And
right.
I think that could be a really compelling story, especially because, you can tell it from multiple angles to kind of, drive the point home, and you can have this kind of, like, little complicated thing that's kind of cute and adorable, and also really sexy.
Yeah. No, I love the sound of that. That's excellent. That reminds me of two little story ideas that I've had. One of them I was thinking of as a visual novel idea as well, where your main character has decided that they're going to become a supervillain because, they've become mad at the world. I was thinking, they're a grad student and they've been screwed over by their professor or something. And two, they've got themselves a mind control chair now. And so that's going to be, I'm going to become the mental virtuoso. On their first caper, they end up in an encounter with this extremely powerful superheroine who, through basically sheer luck, they manage to incapacitate and throw onto the MC chair. And so now they've got this enslaved superheroine. And, they think, oh, this is great. And so they go to bed feeling pretty good about themselves, and they wake up the next morning, and they find one of the superheroine's teammates is sitting in a chair across from them, watching them. But the superheroine friend who has tracked him down doesn't realize that they've enslaved the superheroine yet. They just assume that they're a new hookup. And so the main character has to keep up the illusion that the superheroine is now dating them and not enslaved to them. Because if the superheroine's friends find out what's going to happen, they are going to super murder the main character.
Oh, of course.
And then at that point, it becomes, in the visual novel style, choosing your different actions that either A, manage to keep you alive, and then B, deciding if you want to be really evil and try to enslave all of the other superheroines, or you start having second thoughts and go back to a good side, and sort of the relationships with the different characters that you have at the end of all of that.
Right, yeah. No, that has a lot of potential, I think.
The other story that you reminded me of a little bit, just from the good and evil having a coexistence, this is not exactly the same, but the idea of this girl finds this really cute locket at an antique shop or, in a garage sale and buys it. But she doesn't realize that she has just purchased the amulet of darkness that the evil overlords are looking for. And so they send their best dark magical girl out to reclaim it.
Oh, this just sounds like my Friday evening.
So the dark magical girl corners the regular girl that's bought the amulet and is ready to kill her to reclaim the amulet. But then the amulet lets out this massive wave of magical energy that instantly enslaves the dark magical girl.
Yeah, just like my Friday evening.
So now you have this very confused and not so sure about this whole situation girl with a very loyal, still basically evil dark magical girl at her beck and call. But she still has to keep this girl around because if she knows, that's not going to be the only force that's going to become after looking for this amulet.
Yeah, no, that's definitely my Friday evening. It also sounds like a decent story.
So there's a lot of fun things that we would be able to come up with. It is nice that Mind Control offers so many different angles on a story.
Yeah, I think the one advantage I really see of Mind Control over most fetishes, and I'm just going to toss foot fetishes under the... Should I say the boot?
Do.
I should say the boot here, because, it's much more thematically appropriate, even though I love foot fetishes. Yeah. God, a foot massage from a foot fetishes is the best thing ever. But... When it comes to, a foot fetishist, you can only write so many stories that somehow get someone to have, a meaningful, thing about someone's foot.
Right.
What it really comes down to is you're having a normal story and then foot fetish sex. With Mind Control, the Mind Control can become an integral part of the story in a much more compelling way. And you know what? I'm going to open myself up here and say I might be totally wrong. Maybe there's a part of foot fetishdom that I have never seen, and someone's be like, actually, you can do this and this and this. And I really hope I hear that, actually, because that'd be super cool.
Send all responses to admin@hypnorotica.net.
Wait, is that actually our email there? Okay, but we've gone on about 53-ish minutes, so we should probably start wrapping this up.
Okay, yeah, but that's the thing that gets me the most is how Mind Control can sort of become the entire central drive of stories, and you can take it from all the different angles, and we could have an entire podcast about sort of what it says in regards to the body and mind dichotomy and all of that for how Mind Control works. In fact, I think we should have a podcast.
Yeah, I think for our next episode we should focus on the narrative of and surrounding hypnosis, and we can parse back to Mind Control from mythology in particular.
That sounds good. I like that. We will do that very thing, and we can then bring that into, how it ends up in everything now.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll see you all later.
We're already on our way to indie game development because all the music on this podcast is taken from Kevin MacLeod. The intro and outro sequence is Cool Vibes, and the Plot Bunny music was Quirky Dog, both by Kevin MacLeod from Incompetech.com. used with a Creative Commons Attribution license. That's all for this episode. You'll find this podcast is over in 3, 2,